A second day of US-mediated peace talks between Russia and Ukraine have broken up after 2 hours, with both sides saying negotiations were difficult, but that more talks had been agreed. Ukraine's chief negotiator said there had been progress and a number of issues had been clarified. President Zelensky said the fate of occupied territory in eastern Ukraine and the future of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant were the sensitive issues on which there was no agreement. Hopes of a breakthrough remain low, with Moscow continuing to demand Ukraine hands over key territory. Let's speak to our correspondent James Waterhouse, who is at those talks in Geneva. James, tell us more about what we think has happened in those talks.
Well, we know at the very least there has been dialogue, not just in an official format where we've seen the Russian and Ukrainian delegations sit opposite each other, with the Americans in between. We've also seen senior delegates conversing in the corridors. And, one source on the Ukrainian side said that they had been productive. And it seems we have two discussion groups, one on the military, where they talk about the practical steps needed to enforce a ceasefire. But also there is a political group as well, where you have Russia and Ukraine talking about their conditions for peace. And what we're told is that you can't have the political solution without the military one. So I think on the military side, that is where there is more optimism in terms of monitoring the front lines. But we're still no clearer as to what military commitments Washington is prepared to make for Ukraine to underwrite any kind of peace deal, i.e. to stop Russia from attacking in the future. And as you say, with the issue of territory, Ukraine being simply forced to surrender more land, we're no clearer on that. Whether the Russians are backing down from that demand, Moscow hasn't yet, or whether America is taking it off the table. There's nothing suggesting that it has. And then there is the question of the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhzhia. It's Europe's biggest. It's got 6 nuclear reactors there, and it's been firmly under Russian control since the early days of the invasion. It is very difficult to see how Ukraine could leverage Russia to simply give it up. Ukraine is saying we need to be back in control of it. We've got the technology, and Russia is saying no, you don't. We can manage it ourselves. At the moment, it's not working to full capacity. So we still have these most sticky of sticking points. But I think by the fact we've seen 2 days of discussions, the dialogue at the very least will continue.
And Tuesday next week is the 4th anniversary of the full-scale invasion. From what you know, is the strategy of Ukraine basically to maintain US support for as long as possible whilst Europe ramps up its abilities?
Unfortunately for Kyiv, those timelines don't add up. I mean, it is true that Europe is significantly increasing its defence spending in some areas. It's pursuing what it calls strategic autonomy. But if we're talking about Europe not needing America in the long term in terms of military manufacturing or intelligence, that will take decades, if at all. And for Ukraine, this is a full-scale war it has been fighting. It can only sustain its fight for so long. Some soldiers will tell you they've got another year, maybe 2, because of the human and economic cost for the country. No less for Russia either, but because of the size of the different fighters in this war, it is Ukraine that will lose it first. So I think the strategy for Ukraine, to sort of answer your question, is to just keep America engaged. It wants some kind of long-term commitment. So, for a peace deal to last, Ukraine could say, right, Russia can keep hold of that territory for now. We continue to survive as an independent country, and we know we've got the weight of the collective West behind us. That is what Ukraine is trying to get. What Ukraine can't account for or can't accept, is what it's saying, is a deal where America leaves it to Europe completely and Russia is allowed to replenish an attack in the future. These are the cracks in the floorboards that Ukraine is trying to avoid, and it is not in a position of strength at the moment, and it is the Russians, as the evidence suggests, that are happy to continue waging this war and allowing these discussions to stretch out. But clearly, all sides need to also show that they're willing to take part.
James Waterhouse at those talks in Geneva. Thank you very much indeed. Well, Orysia Lutsevich is the Deputy Director of Russia and Eurasia Programme at Chatham House. She gave me her assessment of those talks.
It's obvious that we have the most unsurmountable difficulty, which is that Russia is not suing for peace and it's not willing to discuss and to compromise on its maximalist agenda. The region in Donbass that it demands Ukraine to capitulate without a fight, it's not just an emotional or a human issue. It is also a strategic military outpost, a network of fortified cities that actually favors the defenders and disfavors Russian counteroffensive. So Putin is putting this specifically front and central, and until that is agreed, and he needs that staging post for future invasion of Ukraine, because as we know, he fundamentally rejects the existence of Ukraine as a sovereign state.
So what is the Ukrainian wider strategy here? Because they still need US support, and yet, as we were hearing from our colleagues there in Kiev, President Trump has repeated his wish for this to be, to a deal to be reached. And there's always this ongoing fear about US withdrawal of support.
Kyiv has like a two-pronged strategy. On one hand is to stay in negotiations, and indeed nobody wants more peace than Ukrainian government and Ukrainian people, but it has to be a durable and just peace. So they engage with a format that was created by the United States, by Trump. On the other hand, they are working hard with the European allies, with the coalition of the willing, to ramp up Ukrainian defense and to make sure that the front line is moving in the other direction, so that Ukraine can negotiate from the position of strength. And it's fundamentally now trying to win the technological race, to inflict higher lethality on Russian army, moving from 35,000 dead and injured to 50,000, as it was declared by Ukraine's new defense minister. And last but not least, increasing pressure on Russia to understand that they cannot bluff anymore, that sanctions will be serious, and Russian oil revenues will be decreasing, and its shadow fleet will be curtailed in its transportation routes to global markets.
Orysia Lutsevich there.